Hello, my freshman Latin students and my one sophomore, Bobby C. It's good to have you guys back. I'm doing this one a little differently. Instead of doing it live in my living room, I'm doing this. We created a PowerPoint presentation to teach you the new material. We've just finished Unit 3, and now we have a whole bunch of verb forms to learn, guys, and that's the trick. So what we're going to do today, as it says here on the screen, is we're going to do the present active indicative and the present active subjunctive of all conjugations. Now, you already know the present active indicative for the first and second conjugation, and you already know the present active subjunctive in the first conjugation. I did briefly show you how to do the second conjugation as well, but we're going to review that. So to start this, we're going to review the conjugations you already know. Now, luckily, my daughter Mary Rose, who has studied and now just finished her undergraduate studies in classical languages, is going to join us, and she might jump in for a few moments here and there to help clarify ideas. So let's start with our review. All right, now all of you will recognize this. This is basically the first verb form you learned, right? The present system. Now we're only going to talk about the present tense today. Later in the week, we're going to talk about the imperfect and the future of the third and fourth conjugation. All right, but right now, just for today, we're only going to talk about the present active indicative and the present active subjunctive of opto. All right, so you see there the four principal parts, and you probably well remember the steps. How do you find the stem for the present system? You take the second principal part, and there you see it, optare, and then you drop the re as it's there, and you end up with opta. And then what do? We add the personal endings. Now you notice the a drops out of the first person singular. Scholars believe that there was an A there originally, like optao, but the pronunciation difficulties of that particular vowel combination made them drop the A, many people believe, by use. But the A remains. Now, remember the rule. Sometimes the A has a macron in the stem, and sometimes it does not. And the rule is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's the teenage, and mutant is the form for the imperfect, optabam, right? And then NT is the Ninja Turtle. So whenever you have the NT or the optat, you drop the long vowel in the A, or if you have an M in that first person singular. So you recognize OST, mustis, und as the personal endings, first person singular, second person singular, third singular, first plural, second plural, and third plural. Now, what about the present active subjunctive stem? And you will remember this as well. This is the one we are familiar with. We just had this recently on a test, right? So we have the same four principal parts. We have, for the subjunctive stem, we have the stem vowel mutations. Now, the we, why do I have we written up there? If you remember when I first introduced this to you, it's a long time ago, I told you about we fear all liars as a way to remember the forms of the subjunctive stems throughout the conjugations. So we is the E. The E is highlighted there because that is the stem vowel mutation. All right, so we have opta, we drop the re, and we have opta, but we're not going to use opta for our present active subjunctive stem. We're gonna mutate that a, and it's going to be an e. All right, so that is opte. Now again, likewise in this one, guys, you will see when you do the present active subjunctive that here we do have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Here's the mutant, so the E does not have the lengthened vowel. And the es does, the T does not, that's the teenage. Optemus does, optetis does, and optent does not. There's the Ninja Turtles. All right, on we have moved. Sorry for the quick transition there. We move to the second conjugation. Now, I did introduce this to you very poorly, actually, when we did a synopsis many moons ago. We did a synopsis of the second conjugation, and I explained to you how to form that. We will see that again. Here, the steps are the same for the indicative. All right, so we're finding the present active indicative stem for the present system stem. So what do we have? We have the four principal parts. What do? We take the second principal part, we drop the re from the infinitive, and we left with implay, and this one has the macron. Now you'll notice in this one, as we go to the next slide, that in the present active indicative, the e remains throughout. But we have impleo, implace, implet, implemus, impletis, implant. All right. And you see again where the macrons are. None on the teenage, none on the Ninja Turtles. Now there is one on the O, as there always is. That is the first person singular personal ending. All right. Now we're going to move on to the subjunctive stem. And how do we locate that? Well, here we have the same thing going on. We have impleo, implere, implevi, impletum. All right. And now we're going to see implere and then implay, and that is our normal stem for the present system. But now we have a new one. Now that's we fear. Remember, we fear all liars. So for the second conjugation, the EA is bolded there because that is our stem vowel mutation. We go from the normal E to, there's the normal E for the present indicative stem, and now we have the present subjunctive stem, ea. All right, so implea is our stem vowel mutation. And voila, there are our present active subjunctive of impleo. And you'll notice impleum, the mutant, does not have the A lengthened, the T, teenage, and the implant. All right, so impleum, impleas, impleat, impleamus, impleatis, impleant. And that is the present active subjunctive of impleo. Now, we're moving to the third conjugation, and we have never learned the present system, the present stem, the present system for either the indicative or the subjunctive in the third conjugation. The third can be tricky, all right? The third can be tricky. So let's see what that looks like. All right. Now, here we have the present active indicative of ducere. That's going to be our model verb, and you'll see that in your books as well. You will see that in your books if you have it open to that page, and hopefully you do, or you're taking notes here. But we see duco, ducere, duxi, ductum. Now you're familiar with the third conjugation. We've seen third conjugation verbs, but we've never done the present or the future for the third conjugation. All right. So we're going to do, again, the present system. How do we find the stem? Well, the stem is duce, but notice without the macron there. All right. The ducere, how do we know it's the third conjugation? Because there's no macron on that E. All right. And so likewise, in the present system stem, there is no macron. Now, here's where it might get confusing.
Sure. Hi, Mr. Flynn's daughter here. So looking ahead into the present active indicative, when you're conjugating a third conjugation verb like duco, the present stem E that you find again by knocking off the RE from the second principal part, that is actually going to vowel mutate in the present tense into an I. And so you'll have it conjugated as follows: duco, ducis, ducit, ducimus, ducitis, ducunt. And there are all short I's there. Notice that there's no macron throughout the entire conjugation except on that O. And with that, there is that change from, instead of it being duco, ducase with an E, as in the second conjugation, the E will vowel mutate in the present tense to an I. But remember that for a lot of the other tenses, that E is going to maintain in the present stem, but only in the present tense for the third conjugation will it mutate to an I here. So just notice that for the present tense, for duco, and other similar third conjugation verbs, that E changes to an I.
And notice the I drops out here in the third person plural, and you have ducunt, similar to what you have with bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitis, bunt when we do the future. You have that change to a U at the end. So duco, ducis, ducit, ducimus, ducitis, and ducunt. So that is the present active indicative. Now we have the present active subjunctive stem of the third conjugation. So we had we, fear for the second, and all for the third. Now here again we have a stem vowel mutation.
Right. So if you look again at the second principal part, you have ducere. So you're going to do the same thing that you would normally do to find your present stem. You knock off the re and you're left with duque. And then instead of instead of changing that to an I as you would in the present, you're going to vowel mutate that to an A. So ducat will now be your stem for the present active subjunctive as opposed to duque in the present tense.
All right, and then that is the end for the third. Now, in our book, we recognize there are only 4 conjugations, but we recognize that the third has a special form that we have to be cognizant of. Okay, and that is the next one we're going to be seeing. All right. This is still coming up next, guys. This is still a third conjugation verb, but it's called an IO verb of the third conjugation, or it's called an I stem. You'll see those used interchangeably in a lot of texts. In our book, it says it's an I stem. So let's take a look at that. Oh,
and here's
sorry.
Just the conjugated.
Yeah, I spaced on this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, here's the conjugation for the present active subjunctive.
So as you can see, the E has vowel mutated into an A. So instead of having ducem, we have ducam, ducas, ducat, ducamus, ducatis, ducant. So again, you have the present stem ducere, you knock off the re, you have duque with that E at the end, and that will again vowel mutate into an A in the present active subjunctive. We fear a liar, okay, so that we fear for the third conjugation.
I say all liars.
Oh, I'm sorry, all liars. Anyway, you're going to look at that A for the third conjugation, and that's going to stay consistent. So you have ducam, ducas, ducat, ducamus, ducatis, ducant. And again, you're going to add your personal endings, and there you go.
And look at those macrons. Remember the same thing on the macrons. Second person singular, first person plural, and second plural. Now we're going to go to the IO verb of the third conjugation, or the I stem. And the model verb here is incipio, incipere, incepi, inceptum. All right? So with this one is pretty tricky. I'm going to let my daughter explain this one.
All right, this one is a little difficult to understand, but I know you can do it. So just like all of your normal verbs, you're going to, again, see what conjugation it is by going to that second principal part, okay? So you're going to look at incipere, and you see that short E in the second principal part, and that's how you know that it's going to be a third conjugation verb. But if you look at the first principal part, you notice that unlike other third conjugation verbs, like duco, there is now an IO, and that's why it's called an IO or an I stem third conjugation verb, okay? But don't let that IO trip you up. So you're going to, again, look at the second principal part, and you're going to see that short E there in incipere. And not like you normally do, you're going to knock off the RE and find your present stem. So it's going to be incipe. Now, unlike other verbs when you would just continue on, this is actually going to have a stem vowel mutation, okay? So that I that we see in the first principal part is going to carry through into the vowel mutation. So that E will now change into an IE. And that's going to be important when you come to different tenses like the future or the imperfect. Yeah, that's where that will come into play. Okay, so just notice that you, again, go to the second principal part to find your present stem. You have the ERE. You knock off the RE and you change that with the stem vowel mutation into an IE. But again, we know it's third conjugation because we look at that third principal part. The second principal part, and we see the short ERE. But it's special because of the first principal part with the addition of that I, okay? But don't freak out. Third conjugation verb with a short E that will vowel mutate into an IE.
And now you will again get further confusion because if you look at the present active indicative, you'll notice there's no E. It just keeps the I. And it keeps the I throughout. Go ahead.
And it's very similar to ducom in the sense that, duco, in the sense that it translates with that I, that short I throughout the conjugation. So we have incipio, incipis, incipit, incipus, incipitus, incipiunt. All right, so now the only difference here between how you would normally conjugate a third conjugation verb in the present tense is that the I stays there for that first person singular. You have incipio instead of just incipo. And then the I also comes back up in the third person plural, incipiunt. So those are the two main differences between a normal third conjugation verb in the present tense, like duco, and a third IO verb, like incipio. So that I just hangs on in the first person singular right here. You see the I hangs in. And then just like normal, it's incipis, incipit, incipimos, incipitus, and then the I will come up again right here in the eon. So those are your main two differences between a normal third conjugation present tense verb and the third IO present tense verbs. And that's where you see that I hang in there.
All right. So now that is the present active indicative, and now we will do the present active subjunctive stem for the third. Now it's still a third conjugation verb, but it doesn't follow duco, as you're about to see. Okay? We have a similar mutation, and this is the liars. Now liars applies to both the third conjugation and the fourth conjugation. You'll see that as we get to sentio. Third and fourth conjugation.
No, third
IO. Third IO and fourth conjugation. Right? So here we have incipio, incipere, incepi, inceptum. We take again the second principal part and we drop that. We have that stem vowel mutation to IE. It would be incipe, but we're going to change that to IE. And then we have a further stem vowel mutation for the subjunctive to IA. So IA becomes attached to incip, which is our verb to begin, incipia. All right, and so now we'll see how that looks for the subjunctive. And there it is, incipiam.
Incipias, incipiat, incipiamus, incipiatus, incipiant. Now, one way you can think of this is if you think back to your normal third conjugation verb, like duco, again in the present subjunctive, it's going to be duco, ducam, ducas, ducat, ducamus, ducatis, ducant. So as you can see, similar to the present, where the I hangs on is in that first person singular, incipiam, but it also hangs on now into of all the other conjugations. So you have incipias, incipiat, incipiamus, incipiatus, incipiant. So in the present active subjunctive, we're going to use again that form liar, the IA, and we're going to make sure that that stem vowel mutation stays consistent throughout all of the conjugations. Okay, so the I hangs on now throughout all of the conjugating. In your first person, second person, and third person, singular and plural, you will have that I present there. And it's going to actually, as you will see, look very similar to a fourth conjugation verb. But again, how we tell that a third IO is in the third conjugation is you're going to stick to that present, and you're going to look back at the second principal part, and you're going to find that short E in there, and that'll distinguish it as a third conjugation verb, okay?
All right, now we're going to look at the fourth conjugation verb, and here it comes. Now you'll remember this one. We've already worked with sentio before. Sentio, this is to feel or to perceive. Sentio, sentire, sensi, sensum. And we have sentire. Now this one is very straightforward. You drop the RE and then senti becomes your stem. Now unlike the third conjugation, you'll notice it's a long vowel. So the I is going to be a long vowel in the stem for many of the forms. So we'll see how that looks now. So our stem is senti, right? And now we're going to see what is added to senti, all right? And there it is, sentio. Now notice again, we have sentio, the I stays throughout for this one. Sentio, and then sentis, there's the macron of the I, sentit, sentimus, sentitis, and sentiunt. Again, we have the I continuing on right here in the third, the third person plural. So sentio, sentis, sentit, sentimus, sentitis, sentiunt. Good. And you know how the translations work for the present, right? It would be I perceive, I am perceiving, I do perceive, and so forth, all the way through I always perceive. All of those aspects are involved here. So now we're getting to the end of this, the fourth conjugation verb and the stem for the subjunctive. And you'll notice similarities.
Right. So when you look again at the principal parts, like you said, you're going to take the second principal part, knock off that RE, so it has a present stem of senti with a long I, and then that is actually going to vowel mutate into an IA. Okay, so just like our third IOs vowel mutated, this will also vowel mutate looking at we fear a liar. Liar is the word that you're going to use here, okay? So you're going to take the long I that's going to vowel mutate into the IA, and that is now going to be your stem for the present active subjunctive. So all you do is you take that forward, and then you're going to add your personal endings. So like we see here, you have sentia, the IA as the present stem, and then you just add your personal endings of m, st, mus, tis, nt, okay? So those are going to stay consistent. It's a very regular verb here, nothing crazy. You're going to have that vowel mutation like you always do in the present active subjunctive from that I to that IA.
All right, so now guys, you know all of those forms. If you look at the beginning of your unit 4 in your book, you will see all of these verbs laid out in tables, all the present forms in the indicative and all the present forms in the subjunctive. All right. So now you are familiar, you understand how to form the present active indicative in the third and the fourth conjugations, and the present active subjunctive in the second, third, and fourth conjugation. All right.
And I would say, honestly, guys, the easiest way to practice these is really just writing out the forms over and over again in your notebook. It might sound boring, but by just writing them down, you're going to consistently be able to remember those forms, remember those present stems, make note of those vowel mutations again in the present active subjunctive. And just by reciting, practicing, writing them down over and over, you're going to slowly commit them to memory.
Right. And then what I would do is, as obviously your homework for this assignment is to have taken notes on this lecture. And so just like we would do in class, you had to write all of this in your notebook. You're going to have to write all this in your notebook, and you're going to have to send me a picture of all of these forms written out in your notebook. Do not worry right yet about the aspects. We'll work on that later once we've finished with the imperfect and the future. So that's it for today, guys. Good work. Hopefully, send me the pictures of your notes that shows me you took notes on this lecture. I want to thank Mary Rose for joining me on this lecture.
Thanks for
And
having me here, guys. It was
all
a
right,
lot of fun.
and we'll see you soon.